Welcome, Secretary Perry.
Yes, sir.
From Southwest Indiana. This committee has spent most of this Congress examining the country's electrical grid, and throughout our hearings, experts have stressed to us the importance of a reliable and resilient electrical grid. There are many sources of energy that can power the grid. However, coal-fired electricity is one of the most reliable, fuel-secure, and affordable energy sources. This was evident during the 2014 polar vortex and again most recently with the bomb cyclone. It was the reliable baseload power plants such as coal and nuclear that prevented blackouts in many regions of the country. Even with its reliability, coal-fired power plants continue to retire at alarming numbers, and I know Mr. Johnson just mentioned this. Since 2010, more than 1/3 of the nation's coal-fired power plants have shut down or announced plans to close. That's the equivalent of shutting down the entire electricity supply for Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and Kentucky. 39 coal power generating units have been forced to close in my home state of Indiana alone. The 8th District of Indiana, which I represent, is home to all the coal mines in the state of Indiana, which is responsible for more than 70% of the state's energy. Without traditional baseload energy sources such as coal being properly valued in wholesale markets, plants continue to be at risk of retiring, leaving many of my constituents at risk of losing their jobs, seeing higher electrical bills, and providing less reliable energy to power our homes. This is why I've introduced H.R. 5270, the Electricity Reliability and Fuel Security Act, which would create a temporary tax credit covering a small portion of the cost to operate and maintain existing coal-fired power plants. I believe the temporary tax credit, which would last for 5 years, is necessary to avoid more coal retirements while Congress, the administration, and grid operators work together to ensure the grid remains reliable and resilient. Secretary Perry, do you think that you would be supportive of this legislation and the other efforts that Congress, DOE, FERC, and the grid operators are taking to properly value coal to prevent more power plant retirements and provide our nation with a more reliable and secure grid?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bucshon, I think it's important that we put into place some processes that assure this country has a reliable and a resilient grid. Coal is going to be a part of that. And coal is going to be a part of the future energy supply for the world. By 2040, the estimate is that 77% of the energy produced in the world will still be fossil fuels. Coal will be playing a major part of that. Our goal and our part to play in this is that U.S. coal is, coal exports are up 61% from a year ago. We're going to continue. When I go to India, we're not just going to be talking about LNG. We're going to be talking about coal and clean coal technology that's developed in this country. We want them, they're going to burn coal, and we want them to use our technology to be able to remove the emissions that are harming the environment in that part of the world and globally as well. So any reasonable approach to making sure that we have a reliable energy source in this country, we're going to be working with, and we certainly think your legislation is reasonable and heads in that direction.
Thank you very much for being here, Secretary. Yes, thanks for your work. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.